It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Thursday, June 13th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is talking all things Egor Zamula.
Yeah, we'll dig in.
Your Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here as always with Russ Cohen, who's on all your favorite social media apps at Sportsology. We are at Locked On Flyers on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Twitter as well. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. You can find us over on YouTube, on the SiriusXM app, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, Egor Zamula, we have been talking about him a lot this postseason, especially as it relates to how we're thinking about the entire Flyers blue line picture for next year. And I think that, he's been kind of our exhibit A for when you let a prospect develop properly. And, they were forced into it because of his contract and he couldn't go through waivers. And it worked, right?
Yeah, he was a glue guy. I mean, there's so many things that point out that they really needed him out there, and there's still a little bit more upside. I don't think there's a ton, but I think there's a little bit more. So, yeah, I mean, that's why they're anxious to sign him, and hopefully they get it done because they do actually need him.
Yeah, I think so too. If we recall, he was undrafted. So he was a free agent signing by the Flyers, played for the Calgary Hitmen, one of my favorite sources of prospects for the Flyers over the years. And I always keep an eye on who's on that team because you never know who might come out of them. They signed him to an ELC in 2018. This year, he was on that $775,000 expiring contract. His qualifying offer should be $813,750, but I think it's going to go beyond that, right?
Yeah, it'll go beyond that because he had a few things, I would say, season highlights that would get him past that.
Yes, absolutely. When he had his season exit interview, I thought it was really interesting for a couple of reasons. Number one, his English has gotten so much better, and you could tell that he was actually, he could respond to questions in a really thoughtful way. And it must have been so difficult to get to this point, but I'm really happy for him and honestly really proud of him on that front.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, we always take it for granted. Like, what if we had to do that for our jobs? Go learn another language and then be able to work at our jobs. Like,
Nope.
most of us would quit.
Yeah. I fully admit to having taken 5 years of high school level French and nothing. Anyway, and of course, I took French instead of Spanish for hockey
I took
reasons.
Spanish. I
But
was good at it.
yeah,
But still now I was like, I
uh-uh.
don't know. French might have been better. I don't know.
Yeah. But at any rate, super happy for him. And he was able to express that he was really happy to have had his first full NHL season this year. And it really gave him a sense of what it took to get there, but also to stay there and what he needs to do to take care of himself and to be, the best version of himself on the ice. And I think that was also really important too for his development to see the full breadth of an NHL season.
Yeah, he belonged, and he could have played more games. Like, the coach prevented him from playing some games, but he
Yeah.
he belonged, and he proved that he belonged. Now it's a matter of where does he fit in the lineup. Again, it's a little alarming when you hear Danny Briere saying, "Well, we have interest in Eric Johnson to be a 7 or an 8." Okay, why are you signing someone to be a 7 or an 8
when
If
you
you
have
do
the
it
7 or an
when
8.
you have these guys already, like, if you're saying
Yeah.
a 6, okay, but it's not Eric Johnson can't do that. So now you're literally just having Eric Johnson around just in case, and this is something like a hardened playoff team would do, and I don't understand why the Flyers would do it.
Yeah, well, if you look at what Zamula said relative to the reality, he said that he thought his second half was solid and much better, and I would agree with that.
Yes.
He was able to really deal with the puck battles a little bit better, and I think that that's directly related to him getting to know what a full NHL season looked like because now he knows, okay, I got bigger this past off season, but I need to continue to do that. He knows, I think, pretty solidly where he can get better and where he wants to. And, he played 66 games this season, to your point of not being in the lineup all the time. And, do you think did he get enough games in the lineup relative to how he was playing?
No, of course not. But there were older defensemen that they were catering to. No, at one point he was their most effective defenseman on the power play. He got
Yep.
11 power play points this year, which doesn't sound like much, but on a power play that didn't do much, it's actually pretty good. And it's, basically half of his points for the year. Now that went up 29%. His power play usage went up 29%. So it's obviously when your usage goes up 29% and you score half of your points, you know, there was some effectiveness, a reasonable effectiveness there. I'm not saying he should be on the power play for life, but he could be on power play too, and he could definitely help them. That's a big thing. His minutes, he averaged 16 minutes. That's really good. I mean, so he's at a point now where he is truly a real third pairing defenseman in this league, should be treated as such. Don't need any more 11-7 gimmicks just to put him in. You don't have to. But when the Flyers talk about having 7 or 8 defensemen, it makes me think they're going to go back to the 11-7 gimmick this year.
Yeah, going back to his power play time, because I think that is very important. He had 101 minutes, give or take, of power play ice time this year. Only Cam York and Travis Sanheim had more time on the power play as defensemen. I think Drysdale probably would have had more if he wasn't injured.
Yeah, we all assume
Uh,
that. So I can't say no.
yeah, but 2 goals, 7 assists on the power play for him, which is, I think, given the minutes that he got, that's really good.
It is. There's an effectiveness there and something that should carry over.
Right. Now, you look at, okay, he was given special teams responsibilities on the power play. He had a minute 59 of overtime time on ice this season. Like, I just think, well, could he have been that defenseman on in OT more this season? Maybe.
Yes, but the problem is he's a young player, so John didn't want to put a young player on the ice. Even though sometimes the young players with the young legs are the best guys to have on the ice at that time. It's not like he's out there alone.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you look at his time on ice overall, then at even strength, he was second to last of time on ice per game for defensemen. Stahl was the only one that had less time on ice than him, which sort of tracks with what we saw, right? If you just
Right.
thought about it, you would
Oh yeah.
probably guess that. But again, I feel like it should have been more, and I'm wondering if it was his style of play that led to it, whether, and I don't know if this was confidence or just him and who he is as a defenseman, but he's not a big hitter out there, like
No.
2.09 hits per 60, right? 79 blocks, which is a lot of blocks, but also he was the lowest in blocks of all the regular defensemen,
Well, you
if you could
can't. I
call
mean,
him that.
everybody's not going to block 150, 200 shots. You can't have everybody doing that. If you do, nobody ever has the puck. Nobody ever, so like you can't. So it's fine. I don't even look at that or even worry about that.
Right, I don't worry about it either. I think it's just sort of indicative of maybe why he wasn't getting additional ice time is that he's not a big hitter, he's not a big blocker, and Torts wants guys who do those 2 things more out there. or is it just not who he is? Like that's where I'm not sure, right? Is it
It's
that's
not
not
who
who
he
he is,
is.
or yeah.
I mean, I think ultimately that's the answer, but yeah, I think look, he could have had more playing time. We all know that.
Yeah, I think so too. I think, there's also some stuff to glean from his pairings in terms of who he was out there with and the situations and things that he can learn and grow in. Looking ahead to next season, we're going to do all of that coming up next. The NBA and NHL playoffs are in the home stretch. It would be incredible to be there in person. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting those tickets even faster and easier so you can make that dream come true. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip off with last minute deals, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying those coveted NBA playoff seats, MLB tickets in your town, and more. My favorite part of the Game Time app is that it's great for getting notified about last minute flash deals, and they let you save even more with zone deals where you just pick a section and let Game Time choose the seat for you. Best of all, they have all in pricing, so there's no surprise fees at checkout, and your tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through email. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with the code Locked On NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, so I want to talk about the pairings that he was in this season and whether or not they helped him. Because interestingly, looking at all situations, the guy he was paired with the most was Rasmus Ristolainen, who was like a non-factor when it looked toward the way he improved in the second half. Risto wasn't there, and I'm wondering, that it says a lot or says very little but about Ristolainen, let's say. But
Well, I
or
think
the
it
fact that Risto was playing hurt. But I think that it was interesting that once Zamula got away from Risto, he improved a little bit.
yeah, I think it's a combination of maybe that didn't fit as well. And then honestly, when they were going 11-7, he's playing with everybody, which isn't
Yep.
a great way to do it either. So I think you would get improved play if you hooked him with the right guy, with the right partner, but they never really put an effort into doing that for him, obviously.
Yeah, and you look at the expected goals against with Risto was the highest by
Right.
far. And I think, that says a lot. And so when he was with other people in the second half or with Sean Walker, I would say, which, is kind of a non-factor given that Sean Walker is no longer on the team.
Right.
But if you look at the best expected goals against for a pairing with him, it is with Travis Sanheim, which does track because
Sure.
Sanheim is the best defenseman on the team.
Right. I mean, that's an easy one. Again, when Walker was gone, there should have been a more defined role for Zamula, and there really wasn't.
Yeah, so he got to play a lot with Eric Johnson and Mark Stahl uh, this season, and he spoke very highly of both of them in
Oh, of
terms of
course.
leadership and joking on the bench and stuff like
Sure.
this. But when it came down to it, he did better when he was with the higher quality defensemen,
Of
of course,
course.
which makes sense. But I do think that brought out more in his game than when he was playing with a Stahl or a Johnson.
Right. He's not at a point where he needs to be chaperoned by a guy who's half as fast as him. It doesn't
Yeah.
help anymore. This is old school thinking that just doesn't work anymore. And hopefully the Flyers are done with that. Their coaching's done with that. Because if you want to get him better, he's got to play with better guys.
Right. And is it Zamula that's carrying these guys at
Well, in a
this
way he
point?
was, yes. There's no
Yeah.
question that he was.
Yeah, I think so. Looking at room for improvement here, he was on the wrong side of the giveaway takeaway stat
Mhm.
per 60 here, where it was 1.24 giveaways per 60 to 0.96 takeaways. So I think that is puck control, that is, responsibility with the puck. And I think that, he's been working on the puck battles, but he also has to deal with it in open ice a little bit better.
Yeah, he definitely lost puck battles on sideboards, and he could be stronger for that.
Mhm.
He is one of the more efficient guys bringing the puck up the ice for the Flyers. That's just a fact. But a lot of times when he was making clears, he would occasionally have those bad clears. It's part of the job, though. I don't think it's anything to worry about.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But, it goes along with that he does need to get stronger and get a little more physical to win some of those puck battles, especially in the defensive zone, because to your point, he is pretty solid at getting it out of there and making that first pass.
Yes,
So I think that would go a long way. And it seems like he knows that's the main thing he needs to
I
work
think he
on
knows. He's
this
intelligent.
off season. Yeah, I think
He-
so too.
yeah, there's a good hockey IQ in there, and so he understands. And at his age, I think he plays a little more mature.
Yeah, so I think that circles us back around to the thing you talked about near the very beginning is he a permanent part of the main pairings next season, or is he the 7D, and how do we get him as a third pairing guy locked down?
You'd have to have a different coach. If he decides to put him in that same role, then it's the coach's prerogative, and you're not going to ever get him unless there's injury. Uh, the other thing to look at is his shorthanded play. I mean, when he was there, he was pretty good, but he didn't get that much opportunity there
No,
either. And so, again, this is like John saying, I'd rather use Delorier than have him out there. Of course they play different positions, but just from a trust factor. I would hope John's trust factor has gone up enormously for Zamula, but I can't tell you it has yet. We have to see that on the ice. So there's other ways he could be used and could be boosted in minutes. I mean, he should be like a 20-minute guy.
I think so. And I think Torts has talked about him a lot very positively, especially late season. So I think we can glean that he does think better of him than he did at the beginning of the season
Sure.
for sure. And so you would think that would continue forward into next season. Time will tell, but it seems like he's on the right track with the coach.
At the moment, but again, we'll see what free agency has to say or just who comes back.
Yeah, and I wonder if you're right about the potential for him having more shorthanded time, because I think if Drysdale's fully healthy and back, Drysdale's going to get the bulk of that power play time, right?
Right.
And so the opportunities may not be there for him, even though we think he should get some of them. Just
Right.
it might not be there, and so is the PK the opportunity for him to make himself invaluable?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, there's definitely some minutes I think he could slot there. And like I said, I think his skating's good. I think that will get better, and I think his strength will get better. And so those are two things that I think would help him be a good PK guy. And he's already pretty good at it. And he doesn't
Right.
take
And
penalties. I mean, again, that was another thing.
no,
He only took 32 penalties, like a penalty every other game on average. I mean, that's nothing. So, you look at some of the older defensemen they had there, they took way more penalties than that.
they did, and I think it's gonna be interesting because assuming Ristolainen is back and healthy to start the season, it would make sense to repair them up as the third pairing here. But if Risto isn't 100%, are Zamula's fortunes kind of tied to that? And could that impact his role on
No,
the team?
I don't think they are because I don't think the Flyers believe that Ristolainen is 100% to start the season at this moment. So I don't think so.
Okay, well, that's good to hear from your perspective because it was something that worried me a little bit.
Sure. Now, if you want to be
Um,
worried about Risto's health for how he's going to be this year, that's a real worry.
Right, but I just am thinking about it in terms of how
No,
it
I
could
know.
affect Zabula and his
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
potential for being in the lineup permanently here.
yeah.
And I think that is something to keep an eye on because if he doesn't have a natural partner, could Zamula get the short end of the stick here?
It's always possible.
I think the other thing in terms of scoring, I just feel like Zamula's a guy that you don't really attach scoring benchmarks to because he's just so much more than that. And he had a pretty solid season on the board in terms of points. He had like several key goals. Two of his five goals were on the power play this year. And so I think that was a really good thing. But I wouldn't necessarily say, oh, he had 21 points this season. He should get 25 next season. Like, I just don't think it matters with him.
No, but he could get 25. I mean, just to say it, I think there's a possibility.
Right. It just doesn't seem like an effective way to evaluate him at this point in his development. But if he increases his point total, all the better. Will not complain about that for sure.
Right. No, nobody would.
All right. So we will keep track of Zamula and where he is headed next season as we get into camp and see if they sign any free agents or any of that. But we hope that Zamula is in the lineup pretty permanently next season. We'll look forward to that. Y'all have some really good questions in our mailbag, and we will get to them coming up next.
Hey, Locked On Flyers fans. I want to take a moment to bring up one of our partners, the mobile game Ultimate Hockey GM. Ever dreamed of becoming an NHL GM and managing your hockey franchise? Do you think you could run the Flyers better than Danny Briere? I dreamed about it. Well, your dream could come true, and this game is most definitely for you. Manage every strategic aspect of your team, play through the seasons, and lead it to the glory. Hire the right coaches and staff, trade players or draft picks, navigate through free agency and the draft, all in a challenging and realistic game world. As a Flyers fan, you know there's no off season. GMs are constantly making moves at every point of the year to improve their team's chances, and that's why I think you're going to love the game. Ultimate Hockey GM is completely free and playable online. Play on the go as you want and when you want to. By the way, Locked On Network listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On NHL in the game store. So make sure to check it out. To download the game, just visit hockeygm.app. That's hockeygm.app, or look it up on the App Store. Ultimate Hockey GM, start your dynasty today.
All right, we are back with your mailbag questions, and L Valentina 7 has a trade proposal here. Would you trade Travis Konechny to Minnesota for Rossi, their first rounder, and a second and 26? We need a small haul for him. I believe when the time is right, there'll be plenty of 28-year-old players at 10 million.
I don't think the timing's right. I think I like Marco Rossi. Eventually, you're going to have to pay him. I think right now the Flyers aren't ready to trade TK. Even though in the next couple of years I would, depending on where they are in their rebuild. But end of the day, I don't think this would work out. But I understand wanting to get Marco Rossi. I really do like him.
Yeah, I like him too. I just, I'm not sure Minnesota takes this deal. They might think it's too much.
Yeah.
Maybe they would say Rossi, another prospect, and a second.
Right. Yeah, they probably
that
would
they're
because they'd have to pay Konechny a lot just to get him to agree to a deal before going to free agency at that point.
right. But yeah, I don't dislike Rossi. It's just like I don't think,
No.
to your point, the timing is right, or Minnesota would necessarily make this particular deal. But I don't hate the idea of Rossi on the
No, me
Flyers. That's
neither.
for sure.
Nope.
That is for sure. All right, John White asks, Flyers fan here, and they need a lot in this rebuild. Their bad cap situation notwithstanding. So I keep up with prospects they're considering, but I'm tired of hearing the phrase talented but undersized. Is Danny Briere trying to put together a team in his own image?
No, I don't believe so. I think they're trying to do everything, and so I don't think they're trying to just do that. It takes a while, man. It's just you are going to get tired a lot of the catchphrases because a lot of times things are fluid and teams don't really have the answer that moment, but they want to kind of give you something that you could hold on to. So yeah, get ready for more of that.
Yeah, and I think, the way that they're emphasizing prospects like Hunter McDonald, who's 6'4", I mean, that's
Right.
certainly not undersized,
No,
right?
but there's a whole other issue with that. But yes, no, that's not
There is,
undersized.
but I think that, they talk about guys that are big just
True.
as much, as they do about the undersized guys here. So yeah, I think it's a little bit of that, but not entirely that,
Yeah.
I would say. Uh, so Dave Town has a couple of questions here. The first of which is related to how hockey players get paid. So he wants to know, how do they get paid? Say a player is making 5.2 million. Are they getting a direct deposit, 100,000 a week minus, taxes, fees, and all of that? Like, how do they get paid? And I think it's a really interesting question because they actually only get paid during the season. So
Correct.
everything is broken down into specific payments. In the CBA, there's a payment schedule there. And so the younger guys that are making a lot less money, that have, less in the bank from previous years, or they haven't been pro before, that like 4 months of the season that they're not getting paid, like that could be a struggle for them,
Oh
especially
no,
early in their
absolutely
career.
is. I watched a show called Broke, I think it was, by ESPN, and just shows that a lot of football players, even really ones that were settled in, uh, didn't realize that they weren't going to get paid for, like, 5 months out of the year, and were spending their whole checks. So yeah, and then the only other thing on this would be escrow, but right now the escrow is caught up, so there isn't any.
Right. And the other part of it is that, there are all those fees. So there's agent, manager,
Yeah, yeah,
business manager fees. There's their dues to the Players Association. There's taxes. So there's like all kind of stuff that comes out of their paycheck during the
yeah,
season.
and they actually get taxed, like, at the end of the year, they get taxed for every city they played in.
Yep, depending on what the state and local income taxes are
Right.
for those locations. But during the season, they do get per diems when they're on the road.
Yeah.
They get, housed and all of
Yeah, they
that.
get
So
yeah, they get travel included, they get hotel included. It's a certain type of hotel. I think now the deals with Marriott, so I think they have to be at a Marriott, and I think it has to be a 4-star. It's like that.
right. So, but the other kind of hidden fees that a lot of people don't think about is their off-season training. They have to pay trainers, they
Yeah.
have to pay sometimes these guys have their own nutritionists separate from the
Mhm.
team provided ones. So there's all these things. So it does add up. And I
It
think with
does.
hockey being the lowest paid amongst the four major sports, like the younger guys really, like they have to be very careful about their budgets.
Yeah, look, if you're a young guy and you wanna sign up for one of those meal plans, you might find it better to actually cook the food yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Dave's other question is, what effect will the purchase of Cap Friendly by the Caps have on the Flyers?
Well, on all teams, it'll take away some information that maybe that it'll be a little harder to come by. Uh, Not all teams are perfectly automated like a cap friendly in their front office, and that's a reason I
Mhm.
think that Washington did that, because it upgraded their own situation to be able to use a lot of the back end stuff with their with their players and their salaries and everything else, and now they could probably track other teams a lot better than what they were doing. This is something that a lot of front offices need improvement in. It's not just, I asked around, and not everybody has put that kind of money into all the front offices. So yeah, it's as far as affecting the Flyers, the only way it affects them is it makes the Capitals a little more efficient, and it does keep if some information away from them that they may not have, and if they want to get it, it just takes a few more phone calls and a little more work. So the Flyers might have to work a little harder as a result,
Yeah, or create their own
or
internal
create
version
their
of
own,
it.
right?
Yeah, so I think it will. I think it remains to be seen what advantage the Caps may have as a result. The last question comes from Chasbear 10. With Kent Johnson finding himself on the outs in Columbus, do you think a trade for him to be the 3C would be prudent? Could he fill in on 2C if there were an injury?
Yeah, he's definitely a 2C. No, he will not get traded. They they know what they have in him. If Vincent all of a sudden, we don't even know if Vincent's coming back. Like his job is up in the air currently. So they're not trading Ken Johnson. They're not.
I don't think so. I think that, you have contract negotiation conflict all the time, but and in this situation, it feels like they're going to work it out. But I just, again, a guy I would not mind having on the Flyers. That's for
Oh,
sure. I
sure,
think
but you'll have to give up a lot. He's not coming
a
cheap.
lot. I know. And he's like, what is he, only like 22 at this
Yeah.
point? So I think that it would be a really difficult thing for the Flyers to acquire him. But I do like the thought. That's for sure. If
No,
there
the
was a way,
thought's there,
if
but
there's
you're
a
gonna
way
be
to get him cheap.
yeah, you're gonna be giving up a player or two that you really like, whether it's still somebody who hasn't played for the team yet, or somebody on the team and maybe another prospect and some sort of pick. I mean, he's a high pick for a reason. He's got a lot of talent.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, that will do it for today's show. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back tomorrow where we'll talk about the latest with the Stanley Cup and as well as the results of this week's poll on
Mm.
teams that their rebuilds and how they're going relative to the Flyers and who you think has the best rebuild so far in the NHL. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. So if you've got mailbag questions you want us to answer, like we did today, you can let us know on Twitter at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russell Matt Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube that's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today available on the free Fire TV channels app. Have a great day, everyone.